Don't be afraid to take back control. And that's the mission that it came back to me when I cured myself from diabetes and some other stuff that I had. I want people to not be afraid of taking control of their health. And he said that I was a heart attack with legs. After 90 days, my triglycerides come down, my A1C came down, my blood sugar came down. I told him, hey, this is what I'm doing. He told me that I was crazy, that I was going to kill myself. But having all my numbers in the right way, I prefer to die from a heart attack than being punched in my belly every day for who knows how many years.
All right, today, folks, I'm very honored and privileged to have Mr. Leo Calligaro with us today. He is a regenerative rancher down there in Cocoa, Florida. I guess it's near Cocoa Beach. And he's got some interesting stuff. So, Leo, first of all, just share a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Dr. Shawn, I was born in Venezuela, and I moved back into the United States about 31 years ago. I hold a mechanical engineer degree, and I have several courses and almost a degree in Master in Business Administration. So I didn't finish the master, but I have almost a master in business administration. But I have always been involved in farming. My parents in Venezuela, they used to own size farms in which we had dairy cattle and beef cattle and production of pork, and then also some vegetables, tomatoes, cabbage, and a lot of other vegetables that we were producing in Venezuela. Then I decided to, because of the political situation in Venezuela and the economical, even though 30 some years ago it was not that critical like it is right now, but I saw it coming and I decided that I wanted to move out of over there. So I got a job with a company in United States, and I moved into United States, and then I worked for the company for 1 year. And I always have been the owner of my own companies, and so I couldn't last more than a year. And I decided to open my first farm, which was a hydroponic farm in Cocoa, Florida. And then immediately as I started producing money with the hydroponic farm, I bought some land, specifically 100 acres, and in front of where I had the hydroponic farm. And I started doing what I used to do over there in Venezuela with my dad, producing beef cattle. And I have been producing beef cattle for 30 years now. But only about 4 years ago, I decided to go direct to consumer, basically after COVID. Because before COVID, I was producing cattle in the regular, like everybody else does. I had a cow-calf operation in which I was selling all my calves into the auctions. And I was feeding basically to get them fat as quick as possible. But always for my family, we kept about 2 or 3 steers that they were completely aside. I have my 100 acres. I have it divided in plots. So I always had a plot that was with grass and it was empty. And that's what I grew the steers, 3-4 steers all the time were in these pastures. And I killed it or I slaughtered for my family consumption. That's exactly what we used to do in Venezuela too. My dad always had some steers that it was specially only for family consumption, in which we didn't vaccinate, we didn't put hormones, we didn't do anything to them. They just grow on grass and salt. Over there, we did a lot of salt, and because minerals really, we didn't have to put in the minerals over there were on the soil. They were really good, and I decided to do that. While I was killing or slaughtering my steers for my family, I had a bunch of friends, and I give a little bit of beef for these people, and they always brave about how good or tasty the beef was. And when COVID hit, all of my friends wanted me to basically slaughter all my cows to give it to them. And a lot of people I would buy it. Tell me, I will buy the beef from you. And I'm like, I cannot sell you any beef because I don't have a way to slaughter legally and sell you beef. So I can give you some, but I cannot basically go broke because I will have no cows or calf to sell on the market later on. And that's how I started the idea of going out. Just was closing my cheese factory. I had a cheese factory in Orlando. We were basically processing kosher milk and producing drinkable fluid milk and cheese. And because of the situation and fighting after, we were selling in Publix and several other supermarkets. But when it got really competitive, I decided to basically sell the company. And it was just a little bit before COVID. And I was looking what to do, and from the idea of going and do beef direct to consumer. That I have here several cattlemen that have talked about doing it, but that it was very difficult, all the stuff. And that's how all of our ancestors' foods started. Name come from, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
Leo, I want to, because I know that I want to delve more into this, but one of the reasons that you had a bunch of vegans attacking your small regenerative farm, which is so cowardly, and I want to discuss it. But before we do that, I just want to, because you grew up in Venezuela, so I don't know if you were there during the time that Hugo Chavez was the quote unquote dictator. We often use Venezuela as an example of runaway inflation, awful dictatorial policies. I guess it's maybe socialistic in a way.
Yep.
Did you experience some of that in Venezuela? And is that what led you to want to leave the country, or was that not a problem before you left?
When Chavez came, basically 5 years after I came into the United States. And what happened is that when Rafael Caldera won the elections back on December 1990, because Rafael Caldera already was a one-term president in Venezuela, and because of all the disasters that he did, I saw it. And when I lived that situation with my dad and my mom, and I saw the problems that he created, when he won the elections, I said, "There's no way that I'm gonna stay here." And on top of that, he was one of the instrumental people that helped on the coup in which Chavez was arrested and go in prison. And he already had said that if he got to be the president, that he was going to help Chavez. So I saw it coming, and I decided, no, I need to flee the country. My dad and my mom, they stay, and my brother stayed over there. And because they didn't think, my dad was an immigrant, and he was upset with me because he loved Venezuela more than a lot of people that still live in Venezuela. And he said, "Leo, everything that you got, your degree, what we have is because of this country." He didn't want to leave, but unfortunately, back and he stayed while Chavez was there. But unfortunately, on 2004, basically people from Chavez people began putting too much pressure, and we were scared that it was going to happen something to him. He had a pretty good sized company, and so I decided to just go ahead and go over there and bring him back. And I brought my dad, my mom, and my brother back from Venezuela.
Okay. So they got out of there
But
before.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad at that time. When I moved, about percent of the people in the country could not afford more than 1 meal a day.
Yeah, and I before we go on, so I always tell people that provide food, farmers and ranchers, thank you, because it's a hard job, and I don't think, and that's what really upsets me is when people like you get attacked for providing food for other people by these crazy activists, and it's quite shameful in my mind. So when and as you rightly point out, you can't slaughter, and you have to have a USDA sort of thing to sell to other people, and particularly if you go across state lines, there's obviously all the regulations up there in place, and some states have a little bit variations on that, I believe. But so the way you were ranching in Venezuela is typically how you're doing it now, right? You said how many head of cattle do you have, by the way? You got 100 acre. What do you have, like 200 or 300 on there? Right. I don't know what you can support.
No. Now on the 100 acres, I have 60 mothers, and I have about 6 bulls.
Okay.
But in Venezuela, yes, we did the ranching uh, pretty similar, but not as the intensive rotation and grazing that I do here, because over there, one of the farms had about 4,000 acres, and then it was divided in pasture, but they were big, huge pastures. The cattle was moved, but it was moved about once a month. Here, we try to move them about every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks, I see. And the difference between the land in Florida versus Venezuela, is it harder, easier, or does it matter? Is the soil type pretty similar? The grass, the forage available
The
similar?
Yeah, one thing that I basically learned with Gay Brown and some other of the people that they have been mentors for me, even though I don't know them personally. But over there, the soil was really rich. It was basically virgin soil, and it had a lot of minerals. And we basically didn't have to use too much of fertilizers. And it was so big and extensive that we didn't have to do too much to the soil. Here on my farm in cocoa, I have a lot of sandy soil, and then we have a lot of high salinity because we are pretty close to the beach. We are not Cocoa Beach, but we are 7 miles from the beach. So it's really saline. Here we had to, and that's what got me interested in how to combat the sandy soil and also the salinity. And that's when I started getting into the situation of how am I going to get organic matter into that soil in order to be able to grow good grass. And so we started doing a lot of bringing mulch and letting it compost, and then add about a foot over the sand. And that's how we actually were able to get the soil to produce good grass. I don't know if you had the chance to see the pictures that we shared in the Scott and Jennifer when they came to visit the farm in December. We had grass that it was above my waist, and they were. Is that is because the land has a lot of capacity to retain moisture, and also the cows' urine and feces, they have they deposit all over the plot, but also because they have time, it's not a lot in one place. Like if I go to, or if we go to another operation in which they have 200 cows in probably 50 acres, in which they're going to have a lot of feces and a lot of urine accumulated in one place, and that's destroy the soil instead of helping it.
So how you have 60 head of cow. I understand you mostly do most of the work by yourself. Is that right? Or do you have, how many people do you have helping you?
No, I basically do majority of my the work by myself. It's hard, but it's not that hard either. And I have my dad and my mom that help me out a lot. And so the cows, they I need to gather them a couple times, like we did this past weekend, to draw blood to see if they're pregnant or not. And because we turn the bulls only 90 days a year in order to have a good calving season, short. So the cows, they move around. As soon as I open a gate for a pasture that have green grass, I really don't have to do much to get them to be really interested to go from the pasture that they are into a new pasture. So it's not that it's hard, but it's not that hard. Now on the hog side, that because we produce pigs too, that's a little bit different. And every day I take about 3 or 4 hours a day just to take care of the hogs. And we are gonna be we produce some lamb now, but I got in a venture in which we're gonna be producing grass-fed, grass-finished lamb also in the middle of the state in Florida with some partners.
Yeah, it's interesting. Many people don't realize that. You think sheep generally are finished out on grass, and that's how it is. But in this country, a lot of sheep are actually finished out on feed, a lot of grain finished. sheep operations, which I didn't know. I guess that's fairly common here in the U.S. Is that correct, or am I wrong on that?
Totally correct. Actually, I would say that a good vast majority is grain fed.
Even on sheep, which is interesting.
Oh yeah, sheep and goats too. They both are fed tons of grain.
Yeah. There is, so let me get, because it's you and your parents. I don't know, how old are your parents? Because you've got to be a little bit older. How old are your parents?
I don't have a shame to say my age either. I'm almost 59. My
Uh-huh.
dad is 93 and my mom is 94.
So you got
And
93 and 94-year-olds and you out there taking care of these animals. And you are the guys that let me get into this, because the vegan activists start attacking your little regenerative farm. Tell it what's going on with that. When did they start attacking you? What are they doing? Why are they doing this?
they basically, when I started the farm, I went ahead and I wanted to make sure that I had good fences. I went ahead and I put the perimeter fence is an 8 foot high tensile fence. And with wood stakes that they are 6x6s. And I built it really good 28 years ago. And till to today, it's in good shape, except that these guys that unfortunately they want to go in and sometimes steal some of my calves, or they want to harvest something that they should do not harvest, that it's basically the mushrooms that they grow on the cattle poop. And they just go ahead and instead of just jumping the fence and go in and harvest the mushrooms, I'm not law enforcement, so I cannot do much about that. The property is posted, but they want to get it. It's not something that I will suggest, but if they do it, I cannot do anything. No, they just go ahead and cut my fences. And not only get my cows, like when I was over there in Tennessee, I had to rush back because I had to have a friend of mine, thank God he was here, to go over there and patch the fence in the best way with some straps and some stuff, because I actually had a cow going out and hit a car. I was in trouble with that too. Not just that they got my fence and the cost of repairing the fence, but it cost me money to pay to avoid any legal action from the person. Thank God the person was driving a pickup truck and it didn't get hurt. But God forbid that he got hurt, I was going to lose my farm, basically. Because the worst thing is that the city of Cocoa grew around me, and I have a bunch of houses right now around, and insurance companies, I cannot afford a GL or general liability because I'm in the middle of the city and nobody wants to really give me insurance because I'm because of the situation that just happened. But I cannot afford selling my land and invest in another piece of land far away from the city. Unfortunately, 30 years ago, that was all wooded. Now it's city or it's the outskirts of the city. Yes, people are coming in, cutting my fences, opening little gates in which they can go in and out without being seen. I have been putting cameras, hunting cameras, but they just go ahead and they find it because unfortunately the hunting cameras they have like a little light that you know blink sometimes, and then they go at night and they look at, they find it, then destroy the camera, and then I'm done. And I spend the money for the camera, and I didn't get any use, even though we had videos for some guy that actually cut the fence, and I got my bulls, my 8 bulls, 6 bulls, out into my neighbor's pasture. And we have videos, and at the end, police didn't do anything because they said that the video was not enough good quality for them to find out the guy. But it's very difficult with people, even though it's a felony. If the police catch anybody doing that, it's a felony, and they will go in federal jail. But people don't care.
Yeah, and so they're doing it for two reasons. You think to harass you and let your animals out, and you said one of them, one of the animals was injured or killed by a truck. I assume maybe he was killed. I don't know if it was.
I had to. I actually the cow was hit bad enough that I had to sacrifice the animal. and I couldn't even sell the meat out of it because by the time that I was in about 3 hours away on the farm that we are putting together. And so by the time that I got here, when we opened all the insides that were broken and some stuff came out, and we said, no, we're not gonna even use the meat to eat it ourselves.
Yeah, what a shame. That's a total waste of life. Obviously it seems crazy that they would do that. Now, because like I said, the reason I found out about you, because I went to Tennessee to this. In fact, I've got a hat on. It says meat stock up in Tennessee last month. And you had provided a lot of the beef that we consume. And it was all very good, by the way. Thank you for doing that. And then we found out that you had to rush back because this was going on. These people were cutting your fences, letting your animals out. And it's you and your 90-something-year-old parents are the only ones that are taking care of this. It just seems an odd target. I guess maybe when you're cowardly and you pick on someone that doesn't have a great deal to defend themselves. It's really sad to see. What is the name of your company, by the way? Because I hope a lot of people hear this and will support you. What is the name of your farm?
Our Ancestors Foods. And the webpage is Our Ancestors Foods. And if they go there on the website, they can see we have a logo that I have here, and they can see each part of the logo has a meaning. And I wish that they look at it and see it, because the most important one, the one that it has, the symbol that it has like a shape of a heart, it's called Sankofa. It's an African symbol, and it means don't be afraid to take control, back control. And that's the mission that it came back to me when I cured myself from diabetes and some other stuff that I had. The story is also on my webpage. And that's why I went ahead and used that symbol, because I want people to not be afraid of taking control of their health. And I help a lot of people totally for free if they want to have. I have been carnivore now for 3.5 years, and my health is better than when I was in my 20s and 30s. And that's why it became my mission to just go ahead and help as many people as possible. And that's why I took that symbol, because I want people not to be afraid of going back and take control of their health and don't listen to the guys that wanted us to be all sick.
So you said you've been doing a carnivore diet and it's wonderful. I wish more ranchers would do that, because they could realize the product that they're producing is so incredibly healthy. When I go and talk in front of cattlemen's group, a lot of times the first time they've ever heard that meat was a health food, they're still bought up into what I would call the propaganda against meat. What prompted you to go carnivore? Where did you hear about this?
It's a long story. Basically, beef, about 2018, late 2018, the doctor on one of my visits, he told me that my diabetes was out of control and that basically I was going to go on insulin. And I said, I'm not going to go on insulin. My mom have been on insulin have been diabetic for 50 years and been on insulin. And I had to help her so many times, punching herself on the belly. And when I open that, I see all the black and all of that. I'm like, I cannot live the life that my mom lived. I said, if that's the case, I will depart you from this world. I'm not gonna do it. And I start my venture of going and look at what can I do. And I got to a book that I cannot remember the name of the author, but it's a Dr. Kuzman or Kuz something, that it says that the name is Diabetes is Curable. And they have a land or a ranch somewhere in the middle of United States, and they offer you a 21-day cleansing and all of that. It's a bunch of juices, green juices, and all of that. And the cost at that time, it was pretty healthy. But I decided, yeah, I'm gonna go because I need to try anything that I can. When I call to set up my spot or to reserve my spot, they already sold all the spots, and I had to wait 2 months. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. And I started looking and looking more. I really couldn't find anything. I was desperate, and for an act of God, because it could not be anything else. One day I was on my farm, really frustrated and feeling bad, and an ad from YouTube, or I don't know how I got into, but it was Dr. Jason Fung and talking. And then I hear that he had the book about obesity code, the fasting, the complete guide for fasting, and the obesity code. And immediately, when I hear him talking about fasting and getting your blood sugar down and all of this, I'm like, God, that's what I need to do. Then a friend of mine, also a really good friend that I love her, she told me, hey, it's a Venezuelan doctor that is in Mexico, that he does paleo, and he go ahead and tell you that he can cure or help you curing your diabetes. I went all the way to Mexico and I started paleo for a little bit. I didn't see any real results. I saw some results, but not what I was looking for. And then I went back and said, let me buy the books from Dr. Jason Fung. I bought the books and I started fasting, and I saw a lot of improvement. And Dr. Fung, all the time, he doesn't say keto, he doesn't say carnivore, but he always said high fat, low protein, basically as close to zero carbs as possible. And one thing to another led me to, on my searches, to get to Dr. Annette Bosworth and Dr. Boss.
Mhm.
And I started hearing her on the YouTube. Then I started keto. And in 90 days of keto, I had the results that I had not even imagined that I was going to have. And I couldn't even believe it. My doctor actually, when I started because I went to my doctor and I said, I would like to do all my blood before I started. And then about 90 days after, I went, and my doctor said, that's not possible. Something is wrong here, because I had triglycerides before they were at 680, okay? And 90 days later, they were at 99 or 109. I cannot remember the number. And the doctor said, something is not correct here. At the same time, when I did my first blood test, he sent me to do my God, I forgot the name. When they do an ultrasound on your artery, calcium score. And my calcium score was pretty high. And he said that I was a heart attack with legs. And so after 90 days, my triglycerides come down, my A1C came down, my blood sugar came down. I told him, hey, this is what I'm doing. He told me that I was crazy, that I was going to kill myself because I was eating so much fat, and fat was going to kill me. And yeah, that I could come down, get my blood sugar down, but then I was going to suffer from cardio problems because of the fat. He came past 1 year, and he sent me again for another calcium score. My calcium score went down, and not down a little bit, went down to basically imperceptible. And he said, I need to send you for a second one because they made a mistake. I went for a second, it was the same. Then his thinking was, oh, they made a mistake on your first text. And what about my sugar, that now I'm running sugars at 80s and 82 and 85? That was the top. And my triglycerides were basically normal, in sometimes even below 100, sometimes just above 100. And my A1C went down. And he was like, don't worry about it. It's because you change a diet and your body is readjust. You are diabetic, and diabetes is a chronic disease. Your diabetes is on remission. And I'm like, okay, if it's in remission and I need to die from a heart attack because of the fat, but having all my numbers in the right way, I prefer to die from a heart attack than being punching my belly every day for who knows how many years. Then I went ahead and I started helping my mother. and doing the same thing, which she was totally against. But slowly I got her to do the same thing, and I was able to reduce her insulin. So she basically was not using any insulin. And same thing, doctor said, you are going to kill your mom. I will tell you this, I'm still alive, and it's about 5 years now. My mom is still alive, and no fat killed me or killed my mom.
Yeah, and your mother, and they're 93 and 94. At what point if they're obviously doing better, that's good to hear. And they're still able to help you around the farm. Your mom's come off, you said, her insulin. Is that right?
Not completely off, but because again, she had been diabetic for 50 years.
Mm.
So she didn't come. I reduced it basically to no use. She was doing insulin like 2 times a day in the morning and at night. And I cannot remember, it was like 30 units each or 25 units on the pen. And now she does it like every other day when she needed, when she measured the sugar.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Let me ask you, because you said you've got beef, you're getting lamb, you've got hogs. I'm not sure what else you're selling. Where are you able to sell nationwide now? Where do you ship your food to?
Right now, we are shipping nationwide. And yes, we do lamb, pork, and beef. That's the only thing that we do. And it's all pasture raised. And on the cattle and the lamb, it's all grass fed, grass finished.
Interesting. And what, just out of curiosity, because you're obviously, Florida's hot and humid, and different cattle do better in different areas. Are the cattle that you raise, the breed of cattle you raise here, very different from what you might have been using in Venezuela, or something similar?
Actually, no. It's two parts. Yes and no. The good thing is that I learned it in Venezuela how to handle Cebu, that is basically Brahma. And the Brahma in Florida or any tropical or subtropical place, it has to have some influence. If you don't have Brahma, you're really not going to grow. You can do it, but it's not as efficient. Brahma, I don't know if a lot of people know, but Brahma, they tolerate extreme heat, extreme cold. They are the only cattle that they have muscle under the skin, so they can move their skin to get the flies out of their body. They are really good resistance of parasites. They have a lot of good sense. And on the motherhood, they are the only breed of cattle that I know of that can adjust the size of the fetus in order to go ahead and have less problems at birth. Dystocia. All my females are pure Brahmas. And I went ahead because when I was selling to the auction, the black hair on the cattle, it was being paid on auction a little bit better because it's a breeder association that I have to take my hat off. That is the Angus Association that made everybody believe that Angus, black Angus, most of them, it's better than any other cow, which is very debatable. So I wanted a black hair on the cattle, but I didn't want Angus because it's another European breed. I didn't want any other cattle that is prone to diseases in Florida because of the humidity, because the insects, because of the sun. I always in Venezuela, we grew Brahma and we grew Charolais. But it was Charolais on the top, so the females were Brahma, and the white Charolais was on top, so the bulls. But because at that point, then it was going to create either red calves or gray calves. I didn't want to do it, and I started the search, and I found that in Canada, it was black Charolais that they were purebreds. In United States, the association doesn't recognize black Charolais as a breed. So I went and I started buying bulls from Canada, and I imported into Florida, and I started producing basically, I'm sorry for dogs, I started producing a crossbreed F1s that they were red Charolais on the bottom, and excuse me, red Brahma on the bottom and black Charolais on the top. And that's basically the breed that I have right now. That it's the breed that we sell, and it had the beauty of both sides. The Charolais, they have a lot of bones, they have marbling, they have really flavorful meat. The Brahma, they had all the motherhood good sins, as I say, that they can adjust for birth. And so we have basically we don't have to assist any cow giving birth, even when they are first time heifers. And also they have all the beauty of they resist heat, they are pest, the flies don't affect them that much. So that's why we decided to create these F1s. And when you have a crossbreed, they have a lot of vigor. That's how we came out to our cattle.
Yeah, the hybrid vigor. So you said you're planning on maybe acquiring other properties, or what is the long-term goal for your operation? Do you want to expand the cattle operation? The other thing, what do you like to do?
Right now, the cattle, we are keeping it the same, but we just, with partners, we just bought 60 acres in the middle of the state. And that's where we are planting the same grass that it's really wonderful for Florida. That is the grass that I told you before that Jennifer and Scott saw and have pictures over there. That is Hermathria. And over there is going to be only for lamb. My intention is never grow to a position in which I will have to have a lot of people working. And when you try to do massive production, you are going to cut in something. And that's something that I don't want to do. And the first thing that it goes, it's quality. And I do not want to jeopardize the quality of my of any of our flesh, meaning lamb, pork, or beef, in order to just go ahead and get a massive amount of product being able to pump through sales.
Interesting. How you said these people that are cutting your fence, how often have they done that? How many times have they done this sort of thing?
This year I have 5 reports to the Cocoa Police Department.
Just this year alone, so 5 times.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the same people over and over again? What are your thoughts?
I cannot answer that question with a straight answer. I think that it's different people, but again, I cannot know. Of course, when the mushrooms are in the best season, that's when it happened more. And so it's a lot of people that they like to consume that and they come to harvest them.
Are these mushrooms like psychedelic mushrooms? Are they eating them, or what? I don't know. I don't do any mushroom stuff.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know what they do with, but I know that they dry them, and I think that they smoke them with some other stuff, or they eat it fresh. But I'm not sure what is that they do with it. I don't even want to know what they do with it, and I'm sorry to say what I'm going to say, but I hate them because what they are doing is not hate the people, hate the mushrooms, because what happened is that they are attracting these people to go ahead and cut my fences. And every time that I need to fix a fence, it's expensive. And I know that the mushrooms have a place in the ecosystem because what they do is they decompose or help decomposing the feces. But because we don't use any dewormers or any chemicals, mushrooms over there grow really good. And people, I guess, that they like the taste of my mushrooms too.
Interesting. Maybe you should just put a sign and say, have a gate says, here, go get your mushrooms and don't cut the fence. No.
The problem is that's illegal. I don't want to go to jail for that.
Oh, yeah. So it's illegal for them to harvest those mushrooms, you think?
It's a drug.
Okay, got it.
It's drugs.
Okay.
So
yeah, interesting. No, it's an interesting. But like I said, every time they analyze, it's almost like you're going to rob it. It's like they're doing in some of these cities where they're saying, "I just go ahead and take stuff, and we're not going to prosecute." It's crazy. Don't prosecute. But anything else you'd like to share, Leo? Is there before we go?
No, I just would like to say to people is I know that people that is in your channel they already know this, but we need to try to gather as many people to understand that food can change your life and that you can just heal a bunch of stuff that doctor said. And I'm sorry, I know that you're a doctor, but a lot of doctors say that they're not curable, that you're going to live with this, that you need to just endure the pain. That's not true. That's not true. I was, as I said, pretty sick. I had problem with my knees because of my. I used to be in the army in Venezuela. I had I still have three hernias in the back. But before I started this lifestyle, I was hurting all the time. My knees. Sometimes I couldn't walk. Sometimes I couldn't. It was really hard to do my job, but I had to do it anyway because animals eat every day, and I needed to make sure that they were okay. But after I started this lifestyle, as I said before, I feel better than when I was in my 20s and my 30s. And I haven't had a problem with my knees in the last 4 or 5 years. I haven't had a problem with my back hurting me, even though when I do stuff that I couldn't do before. So people need to understand that yes, it can be seen as a sacrifice because you are going to have to give up some stuff, but I gladly give up some meals and some kind of food to live the life that I'm living. It's no question about it. I will, if I'm born again and I know that, unfortunately, I didn't know before, but if I'm born again, this is the lifestyle that I want to live because it's no question about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. And thanks for doing what you're doing, Leo. And hopefully this little bit of information will help you guys out. I hope Our Ancestors Foods is a ranch. If you guys want to support them, that would be wonderful. You guys ship nationwide, beef, lamb, and pork, all of it pasture raised. And so good for you. Good luck to you. Keep doing what you're doing, and maybe we'll run into each other down the road. Thanks, Leo. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.